friend of the show, about to join us here. We'll talk Cowboys with Jon Machota of The Athletic. A must follow on Cowboys Twitter. And a good afternoon, Jon. How the heck are you?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for coming on.
It's great to have you. As always, my man, you're doing a hell of a job covering this team from all angles, including the report that 64% of Cowboys fans are having intimate relations more often following a win than a loss. What kind of feedback are you getting on this, Jon?
So I get these emails. I'm sure you guys get them too. I feel like once every other day of just these random, like, Cowboys fans are the seventh most frustrated fan base in all of sports. And I'm just like, I don't know how you come up with any of these. And so most of them, I'll read the first line, I just delete them. And then I saw that one today. I'm like, I'm just going to do a screen grab and I'll just post this on Twitter and just see what people say. So, I don't know. A lot of people are saying that they think that's why the birth rates are down in Dallas because it's been so long since they've had success. I don't know. I don't really know what the numbers are on any of this stuff. They polled 2,000 people, they said. So I don't know where these numbers are coming from, but I thought it would be a humorous post there for people to react to.
It has been a lot of fun to see the reactions. Now, when it comes to practice last night and then a practice tonight on television, what are you hoping to find out here? Is this all about who the last remaining guys to make the team are going to be?
For me, these practices are a little bit more about the starters, just because I know that they're not going to play in that final preseason game. And so, like yesterday, there was some nice connections between Dak and George Pickens and Dak and CD. And so I take a little bit more of those type of things because really, I get it. These preseason games have been super boring, and I can't see how people spend money to go to those preseason games. They've gotten so bad. The starters don't play. I get all of that, but even if they look really bad in those games, it still doesn't tell me. Like, I still can't tell you 100% for sure how I expect this game to go in Philadelphia a couple weeks from now, because we just haven't seen so many of these pieces, playing together in games or in situations where they're actually being tackled to the ground. I make the argument that we know now there's more access than there's ever been before to these NFL teams, and we might know less because of just how training camp and the preseason has gotten. I know some teams are playing starters for at least the first quarter, but the Cowboys just haven't been a team like that. And so these practices are one of the very few times you get to see something that, hey, maybe this play right here that translates into maybe what we see on that Thursday night game.
Has your opinion of what this team could be changed for the positive or the negative at all since we started in Oxnard to where we are now, or do you have more questions than you had going in?
I would say it's probably just slightly more negative. I probably would knock them down maybe, I think, like a win less than I would have originally had. So maybe I'm at maybe 8 wins this season as opposed to 9. And really the only reason why I'm saying that is because when we arrive in Oxnard, I'm thinking I'm going to see more from the defensive tackle position. I'm thinking that I'm going to see more from the cornerback position. And I think those two spots I have as many question marks about as I did entering training camp, maybe even more. But that could always change. Those are two spots. If you told me that they were going to make a move, those would be the two spots I would say that would where I would think they would target. But that cornerback spot is just extremely thin. I mean, they're one injury away from that thing being a total disaster. And then defensive tackle, there hasn't been enough there for me to feel confident that they're going to be a lot better at stopping the run.
With Brian Schottenheimer saying there could be some surprise cuts, and you do these 53-man roster projections. I tried to do one yesterday. We went over it. It's tough. Do you envision a surprise? Like, who would be your surprise cut bubble players?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Brian gives very long answers, which we love. I know that some people might be like, okay, do these press conferences really need to be going 27 to 30 minutes? Okay. So he doesn't do a walk-off like Mike McCarthy did. And so everything is on the podium, but he stays up there for a while. And so, as it starts winding down, there's some answers and some questions that are kind of, stuff starting to get a little redundant. But he mentioned that about, that there could potentially be some things that might surprise some people comparing them to mocks. And I'm just, I was like, I can't believe he knows what mocks are out there right now. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's just being funny. But then immediately, as soon as he said it had my, brain spinning on, okay, who could that be? And the first person I thought of was Mozzie Smith, and when I tweeted out that quote from him, a lot of the fans in my comments were saying Jalen Tolbert, and I just don't see that at all. I've always gotten the sense that Dak likes Jalen Tolbert a lot, and Brian Schottenheimer likes Jalen Tolbert a lot. Like, I don't see them cutting Jalen Tolbert. And then there's some fans mentioned like Luke Schoonmaker. And there's some other people like that just aren't on the same level with me, where Mozzie's still the number one DT on the depth chart. You know, we see him when they go up the ones yesterday. He's out there. So I'm not saying that it's going to be him, but if you told me I had to pick somebody that'd be a surprise, I would say him. And the reason why it'd be a surprise is because he hasn't come close to playing like a first-round pick.
Would it be a surprise if they tried to trade or cut Sam Williams?
That's an interesting one too. See, when I see names like I said, the Tolbert thing, when I hear Sam Williams, I would think that would be more of a trade. I just can't believe that they would just let those guys walk. I just think there's too much value there. But those two positions, the end and wide receiver, you know, are ones where, you know, that I guess maybe before the Mingo injury, I felt a little bit more so this way. But there's teams in the NFL. Our Diana Rossini at The Athletic has reported, you know, several teams are looking for wide receivers.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a spot where you know, maybe you work a trade with the team there for somebody. You know, obviously somebody not named CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens, but maybe D end is a spot too, because, you know, you start looking at some of these guys and you're just like, man, like, I think Peyton Turner is going to make the team, and it seems like they can get some good production from some of these other guys. I mean, I think D end is their deepest position, so maybe in that way, I just can't see it being an outright cut.
John, when you look at the running backs, it looks like Javonte Williams has secured being the starter. Do you feel like Miles Sanders is safe, and what would that do to a guy like Phil Maffa?
That's a good one too. That's another guy that I thought about as well. That when Brian Schottenheimer said surprise cut, maybe Miles Sanders would be one if they think that, hey, we can't get Phil Maffa back to the practice squad, because I look at running back and I'm like, Javonte Williams on the team, he's so secure they're not even playing him in the preseason.
Right.
Jaden Blue, I believe, has the most upside, so those are two locks. Hunter Lipke is a lock. And are you going to keep 5 running backs? I just feel like there's going to be too many more holes at other spots. And so that comes down to one final spot for Miles Sanders, Phil Maffa, and Deuce Vaughn. And so going into camp, I would have said no doubt that Miles Sanders is the guy. But I don't know if maybe they don't feel that way. Maybe that's why they had him playing that last preseason game. So, yeah, I guess he could be a surprise guy, but I still, if you told me right now I had to pick my 53, I would have Sanders on.
It's Jon Machota, The Athletic, with you here on your home of the Cowboys. Where are you on the idea of maybe a different quarterback coming in here?
So myself, and I also believe the team, aren't going to do that. I think that for me, it's the whole idea of, I think this team is very top heavy. I think that they are a key injury away from it being a really bad season. And why sit there and spend any type of a resource on a notable backup if you were to lose like a Dak Prescott, then go get that top, you know, high pick and you know, kind of maybe improve this roster that way, because obviously they're not going to spend big in free agency. We know that. So that's my only thinking on that. Why go invest in a quarter, like honestly, like a Cooper Rush, where, yeah, he can win you some games, but it's not really going to put you over the top and put you in some situation for a playoff run. So if Dak was to go down, then you go with Joe Milton and you ride it out, and whatever happens, happens. But like Joe Milton, I know that there's how bad he's looked, that there's some people think that they should get rid of him. That's not happening. And the fact that they invested that draft pick they traded for him, they're going to give him every chance to be that backup, and if not, then maybe they carry 3 quarterbacks and it's Will Grier. But I feel like if you had Jerry on this call right now, well, actually, maybe not on this call, because I don't know if he'd say it publicly, but I think behind the scenes he would say, I've invested $60 million in my starting quarterback. I'm not investing any more money in this position.
Hey, John, and speaking of Joe Milton, do you think if Joe Milton had just played at a serviceable level at quarterback during the preseason, that we might be thinking differently about this team?
Absolutely. That's what I was expecting. I mean, you know, it's one thing to try and project, oh, hey, this is what he did at Michigan, or this is what he did at Tennessee. I put a lot in, and I know the Cowboys did too, from people I've talked to, in that game he played at the end of last season against the Bills. And I understand that it was all Bills backups. Well, what's he been playing in these 2 preseason games? And I'm telling you, you watched that game last year against the Bills.
It was unreal.
I challenge you to find a play in the first half that was a bad play. Like, something's not there, he throws it out of bounds. Like, he just seemed so confident, so comfortable. So yeah, just to get through the simple plays, I thought he would be fine with that. I'm not saying he wouldn't have an interception here or there, maybe a bad decision here or there, but like the one that I will go back to, that stands out most to me from all of training camp and all preseason is really that sack on Saturday for the safety.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're just like, you got to see that. You got to get rid of the ball. You know where you're at. You're not going to have much time, and that's just not a good look for somebody that you could potentially need as a backup quarterback.
Jon Machota with us here in the GBAG Nation. It was sad seeing the videos of Micah just kind of sitting on the sideline. He just looked absolutely just devastated that he couldn't be playing yesterday. Do you think the Cowboys, if they don't get a deal done, would be more open-minded to trading him next offseason?
Yeah, and maybe next offseason. I don't see it happening during the season. I could see them having him play this out, and then next offseason they get a good offer from a team, because I do think that'll be a more opportune time to give a better deal than what they'll probably get offered right now. But I think they want to see what he can do for one more season, especially with this potentially, playing it out without a new contract. How does he handle that? How does he carry himself and things like that? So, yeah, no, I don't think it's completely 100% that they would never trade him. I think it's very unlikely, but these all get to a point where it's like, well, it might be best for both sides to just move on. And then I just feel like next offseason, that's when you look at where are you in the draft, and where are these teams that are offering picks to you are in the draft, and what can you get in return, and how quickly can you turn that around into something that, it really helps you. And then the only other thing I'll mention, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but like, what if Donovan Ezeraku has just an amazing season, and I think that would be asking for a lot, but like, what if that or Marshawn Nealon or something like gets to a level where they're like, well, we can get these 2 1s and this back, we didn't think we'd have these guys playing at this level. Maybe we do it then. Again, I don't expect that to happen, but that would be one other potential scenario.
Are you pretty confident that this is not a deal that's going to get done before the season?
Yeah, as of now, I am. Yeah, I think Jerry was really frustrated in March when they didn't get it done, and didn't, when we talked to him at the owners' meetings in Florida in early April, you could tell he was at his very top in terms of his frustration. And I think he was still frustrated as it entered in camp, but then for Micah to put out that trade request like that, and then to put out some of the details he did, I think that angered Jerry even more, to where this is one of those, like, this is just Jerry versus Micah right now. And the fact that Jerry and David Mulligetta haven't had any, conversations up to this point, to think that all of a sudden one of those two are going to give in and talk, it just seems very unlikely right now. So I think that, the biggest story for the Cowboys going forward is, will Micah Parsons be on the field in Philadelphia?
Wow. And what do you think the chances are that he's not?
I would say 15, 20%. I still think it's going to be tough for him to not be out there with his teammates. I think it's tough for him for the very first game of the season in Philadelphia. The entire sports nation's eyes on Cowboys versus Eagles. I think that's going to be really hard for him to not participate in that game. But if he and his representation believes that's his best leverage, then sure. But just talking to Emmitt Smith a week or so ago on that blue carpet before the premiere, and asking him about how hard it was for him to sit out those 2 games, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it with Mike. I think it'll be too hard for him to miss actual games.
When would you think he would start to need to practice then, John? Does he do this like this week? Is this the final when they start to get ready for the games? Is that when you think he would practice?
Yeah, I don't see how he could just be one of those things where he doesn't practice and then just is on the team playing and then plays, and they're like, well,
Sure.
We're going to put him on a pitch count and that. I think he has to get in at least a week of practice. And even with that week of practice, you could hear the coaching staff potentially say, well, yeah, he's working his way back. He's going to be on a pitch count. He's not going to play the normal steps. He will right away. So there still could be some of that. But if he's not out there practicing that week right before the game, then that's certainly a major concern.
I think it's kind of like the Tank Lawrence deal, where after they franchise tag him a second time, then he and his agent will be able to say, hey, we're like 6 months away from being a free agent. I think at that point, if he's still playing great, the Cowboys would be afraid to lose him and be willing to do a long-term deal at about $50 million a year. Machota, what do you think about that forecast?
Sure, but there's got a lot that's got to go right between now and whenever that happens. He has to have an outstanding season on the field. The team has to probably play at a very high level. And then obviously there's got to be, at some point, Jerry Jones and David Mulligetta need to talk, because this whole notion of like, and I'm not saying this is a lot, but occasionally, when you're on Twitter, you see fans talk about like, well, Micah needs to get a new agent. Micah's not leaving David Mulligetta.
No.
I mean, he's one of the best, if not the best agents there are. Like, he's not going to do that. And so I don't see a scenario where this thing gets done without Jerry and David Mulligetta talking. Like, there's not going to be, all right, fine, Jerry gave it another try down by the training table and got Micah to sign this napkin, and now it's not going to happen like that.
John, do you think that Micah, and this is why I think Jerry might be so mad, is that he really believed that he and Micah were negotiating? Do you think they were negotiating?
That's such a good question, Brian, because from all the, being around Jerry at the owners' meetings, being around Jerry out at training camp, maybe he believes that. It's hard for me to be completely 100% in
Sure.
lockstep belief of that. There's a part of me that now with this dragging out, there's a part of me that thinks, was that all part of this deal where he always was going to have that leverage and say, well, I tried. I can tell you guys, see, I tried. Back in March, we had agreed when it's like, it's the year 2025. Like, who's getting a deal done like that? I get that, there's things that happen in the past that, like, times change. Like, nobody realistically thinks that a star player of Micah Parsons' caliber with the H&E has is going to get this thing done on a backdoor deal. Like, that's just not going to happen. So maybe he tells himself that. Maybe he believes that. I can't wrap my head around how he would think that's realistic, that really is that should have been how the deal got done.
But Micah, maybe his ego too, wanting to maybe go toe to toe with Jerry on this.
That's interesting. Possibly.
See, that sure. I kind of feel like that Micah has that in him, that he's, maybe they talked about leadership stuff, but I kind of feel like that Micah took an opportunity to ask about his contract, and Jerry said, okay, you want to talk about your contract? And they kind of went at it a little bit. And I think Micah's ego, like, hey, I'm negotiating right now with one of the most influential guys in sports, and maybe that's Micah's ego, and he got out over his skis a little bit too far.
I could see that being the case. There's no question about that. I mean, Micah is well versed in a lot of different topics.
Things.
I can tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of different things, just from the times talking to him
Sure.
At his locker and things like that. So I could see part of that, but I just keep going back to the David Mulligetta part of this. That
no.
You know what, Brian? Like, we don't need to name any names, but there's players that have played in this league that they're represented by certain agents, and you see contracts are done, and you're like, yeah, I can see how that got done there, but that never would have happened that player is represented by, really, honestly, the two guys that the Cowboys have had the most, difficulty with, David Mulligetta and Todd France. Like, their guys just don't take those deals like that. And so it's either you pay top dollar, which obviously they did with Dak, or you eventually move on. And they've never eventually moved on. Maybe this will be the first time.
Great stuff, John. We'll catch up with you soon, and thank you so much for your insights.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me on.